less stress, more time, more money. Welcome to the Cashflow Contractor, short with Martin Holland.
How to bid like you mean business. Hi, this is Martin, and welcome to this short episode in which we're going to discuss the topic of bidding like you mean business, bidding with intent. Now, if you're going to bid with intent, you have to intend something, and that means that you have to have a purpose for your bid. If the purpose of your bid is just to get the sale, to win the project, we're falling a little short of the real target. What we should really be aiming at is to get the sale at a price that allows us to pay our overhead expense and also earn a profit. I have a contractor I've been working with probably 6 months, and it took about 3 months to get his books arranged so that we can see what his sales and his cost of sales and his gross profit and his overhead were. And when we finally saw the numbers, it just reaffirmed what we had thought all along. He was doing a lot of work and making a lot of sales, but he wasn't making very much money. Now, there can be a lot of reasons for that. One of them is that your overhead's too high, and we should always pay attention to overhead and not spend money needlessly, keep overhead at a minimum. But in this case, that wasn't the problem. His overhead expense were very reasonable for a company in his industry and his size. So we took a look a little farther up on the income statement to look at his gross profit margins, and they were very slim. He was getting a lot of work, but he wasn't getting it at a price that would enable him to pay his overhead and make a profit. So why is it that that happens? Well, I see that a lot, and I think one of the reasons is that we don't bid with intent. We don't bid with a target in mind, with an idea of what we have to pay our overhead and also make some targeted amount of profit. So what's it take to get a targeted amount of profit? Well, to understand how much you have to make, we have to understand that we only have a limited capacity to do work. You simply cannot do enough underpriced work to pay your overhead before time runs out and your capacity runs out. So we have to know how much margin we make on each job. And for the man I was talking about, my contractor client, we chose a target profit margin of 40%. That means out of every dollar of sales that he brings in, after cost of sales like labor and materials, he had 40 cents left over. And then he could use that 40 cents or $40 out of each 100 to pay his overhead. Once his overhead was paid, it began to accumulate it as profit. So that's the first thing. We have to have a target margin based on our capacity that it takes, that we are aiming for, that enables us to pay our overhead and also give us a profit. The second reason, the first reason being no target, the second reason is that there's confusion between markup and margin strategies. Markup and margin, the words are used as synonyms occasionally, but they're not the same thing at all. A markup is an amount that we add to cost to come up with price. A margin is the amount of our price that's left over for us after we pay our direct costs. So for example, if we do some calculations and we have cost in a project that we estimate to be $1,000 and we want a 40% markup, we would multiply 40% times $1,000, that's $400. We'd add the two together and we'd get a $1,400 price. Well, the problem with that is $400 is only 28.5% of the $1,400 price. A margin strategy is to find the price that will give us a margin equal to 40% of the price. I won't talk about exactly how it's done right now, but in this example, the contractor would have to bid $1,667 to give him a 40% margin. That means that $667 is 40% of the $1,667 price. So the first thing was not having a target in mind, such as 40%. The second was make sure that you use the 40% as a margin and not as a markup. The third thing that confuses or that acts against us when we're bidding is confusion between cost and price. Now that may sound silly. Everybody knows the difference between cost and price. Cost is what you pay for it, whatever it is, and price is what you sell it for, whatever it is. Well, those are the correct definitions, but I oftentimes see the two confused in bidding. Just to give you a case in point, an example, using $1,000 again, the same contractor I've been talking about came to me with an estimate one time, and he had $1,000 a day in his cost estimate for labor. And I said, well, that's a nice round number. I'm suspicious. Does your labor really cost you $1,000 a day? He said, yes. And I said, well, let's do the math. So we took the man hours times the average rate, and we added in payroll taxes and health benefits and so on. And the real number, his real cost for an 8-hour day was $660. So the $1,000 that he was using in his cost was actually his price. $660 was his actual cost. Now, the reason that's important is when you gross up your cost, by that I mean increase your cost to come up with a margin, a price with a target margin in it. If you use price in your cost estimates, you're grossing up something that's already been grossed up. Now, that's okay if you can sell it at that. That's more money for you. But there are times that you'll lose jobs, and maybe you won't even know why. You say, why, it cost me more than that. He can't do it for that. We've all heard that. But sometimes it's because we've used price in our cost estimates instead of cost. When you're calculating your cost, it's your real out-of-pocket, I got to pay for it costs that you would not have if you did not do that job. Okay, so cost versus price. Having a target, bidding without a target market, confusing a margin and a markup strategy is the second thing that goes awry. Confusing cost and price is the third thing. And the last and the fourth thing that messes with our bidding is our lack of confidence. When you begin to bid with a target strategy and the margin that you have to pay your overhead and make a profit, that oftentimes mean that your prices went up. That means you have to have confidence and courage to present that to your customer. You have to stick your chin out and say, that's my price. That's what it costs because I have to earn enough money to take care of you. But it takes confidence. I understand that there are bidding competitive situations. All competitive bids are not awarded strictly on price. And we have to give our customers reasons other than price to buy from us if our prices are higher. But anyway, those are the four things that I find often that interfere with intentional bidding, what I've called intentional bidding. They are lack of a target. We're just bidding to get the job. We're not bidding to make profit. The margin and markup strategy, which a markup strategy will never give you an equivalent margin ever, mathematically not possible. Confusing cost and price, and then having the confidence to bid properly. If you pay attention to those four things and begin to bid with a target that includes profit in mind, you will change your business, you'll change your life. I have a calculator in the show notes that's called the break-even calculator, and you can go in and see what your sales need to be in order to just pay your overhead at any given margin. So you can play with that and see what margins you have to have just to pay overhead. Increase your overhead by 10% and find out what margin it takes to give you that, and you will have your target. So open your minds, have a look at those four factors, go get the calculator, and go out and bid like you mean business.
Thanks for listening to The Cashflow Contractor. Check out our website in the show notes or visit thecashflowcontractor.com.